Welcome to Inside the Kentucky Derby. We're moving on in the championship series after Confidence Game. James Graham, Keith DeSormo, Don't Tell My Wife stables won this past Saturday's Rebel down at Oaklawn Park.
Confidence Game is 3 deep. 2 back to Gun Pilot. Talladega is next. Reincarnate still has a long way to come. And Giant Mischief off the top of the turn is joined by Long Shot Confidence Game. And Confidence Game is now a length and a half in front. Reincarnate is trying to split horses to the outside. And Red Route 1 from the back of the pack. It is Confidence Game. Red Route 1 moves into second. Confidence Game. Red Route 1. Confidence Game.
That was a very excited Vic Stauffer on the call for the $1 million Rebel. Kevin Kirstein, Darren Rogers here with you once again inside the Kentucky Derby. Of course, would not be possible without Woodford Reserve. With more than 200 flavor notes in every sip, Woodford Reserve is a spectacle for the senses. Please enjoy responsibly. Darren, we had another collapsing pace in a championship series race on the road to the Derby, and Confidence Game took advantage.
Yeah, he really did. Hats off to Keith DeSormo for having this horse ready. Jimmy Graham gave him a great trip, tracked just off the pace, a very fast pace. We knew that going in, but boy, it was really, really fast. And the race did kind of fall apart, but I'm going to give my head a little tip of the cap to Confidence Game because he wasn't that far off it. He was always about anywhere from 4 to 5 lengths off the very hot pace, and he had enough to withstand the late challenges from Red Route 1 and Reincarnate.
Yeah, the big, storyline of the race on Saturday at Oaklawn, the weather certainly did not cooperate. Didn't cooperate Friday. I think more than 3 inches of rain fell in the Hot Springs, Arkansas area, and it left the track a muddy mess. And so, there were some horses sort of adapting, and then you take on the pace scenario that we talked about on Thursday going into the Rebel. And we knew the pace was going to be hot, and it certainly was. 22-3, 46 seconds flat, 1:11-2 for 3/4 of a mile. That's a fast time over an off track there at Oaklawn. And, I think, coming out of this race, there's going to be, maybe some question marks on Confidence Game. Is he, going to just be a horse that relishes the off track? And he show that same performance on a fast dirt track? His speed figure came back solid, and but I do think there's some questions that are going to exit this race. Darren, did he take advantage of the pace, even though he was, sort of closer than a horse like Red Route 1? And did he move himself up because of the off going?
I think he did take advantage of the situation and the environment as well. Look at his breeding. I think he's bred to relish the off going, and then there was going to be a collapsing pace. Look, last time out, he's been stable down at Fairgrounds all winter long. In the Lecomte, he raced 3 wide, and he pressed the leaders into a fairly fast pace down at Fairgrounds, and he came up weary in the stretch. He finished 3rd, and he clearly took a step forward. He was way fine in the slop this time. He established position early. He sat off of the pace setters, powerful, Frosted Departure, and even Giant's Mischief was up there early, going into the first turn. And, Confidence Game was able to tuck in, 2 wide, and then he was able to track in the clear from 5th, about 4 to 6 lengths back as, Powerful and Frosted Departure. I mean, they kind of, they ding-donged all the way around. And you said that was a fast opening quarter mile, 22.75, the half, 46.17. You had a next flight back where the stablemates about, a length and a half to 2 lengths back were verifying down on the inside, and Giant Mischief on the out. And, leaving the turn, Confidence Game, he was beginning to close ground, put in his 4 wide move. It was Confidence Game and Giant Mischief from about the top of the stretch to the final furlong pole. But Confidence Game continued to kick clear, and Giant Mischief folded. I mean, he went from second to what did he finish, 8th, 9th?
Yeah, and
in the end, but just finishing off on confidence. He had enough left inside that final 8th to withstand that late charge. You could hear it in Vic Stauffer's voice from Red Route 1. I mean, he rallied from 18 to 20 lengths back down the backstretch.
Yeah, that's that's
a
long way back.
And then Reincarnate was probably about 10 or 11 lengths back. And, he did have to check with a Weaving Bourbon Bash in mid stretch, and that possibly impacted his chances for the runner up effort. But look, it was all confidence game.
Yeah, it certainly was. And here's what his trainer, Keith DeSormo, had to say immediately following the race.
Schooled him on Thursday. We schooled him in the morning, and there were no people above him. And Oaklawn has a unique paddock, whereas the fans are on top of the horses. And once he walked in and saw 100 people looking down on him, he lost his crackers. So I did what I could to keep him calm, keep him moving. And I really had zero confidence before the race, to tell you the truth. I know the talent is there, but if the mind is not right with the ability, you usually can't win these kind of races. And he overcame. I think he just loved that mud.
He did overcome, and it was interesting, watching his antics in the paddock. And Keith was on the shank trying to calm him down. And, once he got out on the racetrack, I think he was able to take a deep breath and relax. But that paddock at Oaklawn is, it's daunting.
It's a sunken indoor paddock.
Yeah, it's probably, a good 10 feet into the paddock. And the crowd at Oaklawn, I mean, tens of thousands of people were there, and there were stacked up at least 5-6 deep at the paddock all the way around. And it's not like it was quiet. There was, talking and chattering and, a lot of happy Arkansas race goers.
Look, if he's losing his crackers in that scenario,
yeah,
what's it going to look like on the first Saturday in May?
Right.
Now, with that said, I'd love to lose my crackers and put forth that type of performance.
Yeah.
The horse clearly when he got out to the racetrack, I don't know, was he relieved, relaxed?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, I want to give some big time props to Keith DeSormo. Look at this horse and his purchase price.
$25,000.
$25,000. And look what his breeding is. I mean, he's got Zenyatta in his bloodlines on his bottom side. I think it's a third of the price of what Candy Ride was standing for as a stallion. So clearly at the sales, you're thinking maybe this horse has some issues for going at as much of a bargain as he did. And Keith DeSormo has gotten the foundation underneath this horse. And, he's danced some dances, and clearly he put things together. And jockey James Graham, too. I remember, we've talked on this podcast. I know we've talked on Inside Churchill Downs of James Graham when he first worked this horse out of the gates, and it was back in late May, early June. And he said, this is the type of horse for, the first Saturday in May. And he's developed him, and he's helped him in the mornings, and he's helped him in the afternoons too. And here's what jockey James Graham had to say following Saturday's Rebel. He was a very happy
he's grown up. He's starting to figure it out. He's, all throughout his 2-year-old year, he was just there. Sometimes there he wasn't. Sometimes he was there. Some days he wasn't. And today it just came together.
Simple as that. It just came together. And, James has been around this horse a lot. So, he'll go back to fairgrounds. Now the Louisiana Derby or the Arkansas Derby are the next two possible targets. And we'll see what happens after he gets back down to NOLA.
Well, and you have the luxury of being able to do what you want. You don't have to squeeze the lemon dry in the final prep before the Derby. You've got the points. He's now atop the leaderboard with 57 points. You obviously want to have a sharp race in advance of the Derby. What's a sharp race? It could be a top 4 finish.
Mm-hmm.
It depends how it looks. But I think that's what Keith DeSormo is going to have to weigh. He's back at the fairgrounds already. He van there the day after. You have $1 million race in your own backyard on March the 25th, where it would then give you 6 weeks?
6 weeks.
6 weeks until the Kentucky Derby to recover and rest. Or do you, give him more time, maybe race in Arkansas, and you still have 5 weeks between races. So he's got plenty of options. Doesn't have to worry about it right now. One thing we know, He likes fairgrounds. I mean, he likes Oaklawn Park, albeit it was a sloppy track.
Yeah, he certainly did relish the slop. Let's talk about Red Route 1, who took advantage, being way far back, as you mentioned, between 19 and 20 lengths off of that early pace, and he ran a very solid effort for the Asmussen camp to just miss and finish second at odds of 9-1. Do you buy, sell, hold on Red Route 1 as an improving Derby prospect after that effort?
Oh, absolutely. He's an improving Derby prospect. I buy into it. Look, now he's had a setup in back-to-back races, but that's the type of race you're going to get when there's money on the line, right? You're going to usually get a fast pace. We've talked about it just from a general handicapping standpoint. I prefer horses on or near the lead. They're going to get well positioned and be forwardly placed because when you're so far back, you have to not only be fast enough and close into that quick pace, but you have to avoid traffic troubles. This horse, 18 to 20 lengths back, Christian Torres just sat patiently. You look at the turn for home, he's still dead last and just starting to get going. And would he come out about 4 or 5 wide on that final turn in the clear because he knew how much horse he had. And, the fact was confidence game just didn't really back up where others that were on or near the lead did.
Yeah.
And so, look, I think Steve Asmussen's going to give him a chance. And it sounds more like the Louisiana Derby at 1 3/16 miles, and the long stretch at Fairgrounds is going to be the next target on March the 25th in advance of the Kentucky Derby. But I buy into this horse being a promising colt that keeps developing on the road to the Derby.
I think the one horse that I want to look forward to out of this race as a prospect in the Derby is Reincarnate, who ran a very troubled third, and he had it was significant trouble in the stretch where Mikhail Michel
and at the start
on Bourbon Bash and
into
at the
start,
start, yeah, and
shuffled a little bit.
He got shuffled, but I think that was probably for his benefit with how fast the pace was going to be up front. So even though he did get shuffled, it was probably more towards his benefit from having that trouble. But he experienced significant trouble in that stretch. We know he's run fast enough figures, as we saw in California, to be considered, one of the top speed figure wise in the top echelon of these 3-year-olds going right now. And I think he's going to get a lot out of that race. John Velasquez, as soon as he was coming back into the paddock area after that, he told trainer Tim Yachtine, every single bit of my momentum was taken in the stretch from Bourbon Bash. And so
it was. He had to check hard.
But again, I don't know.
Was it a length and a half?
I don't know if he was going to win.
Well, he wasn't going to win. I'm confident about that.
Yeah.
Rewatching that replay, but one could make a case that he might have outkicked Red Route 1 for the place.
The two disappointing horses in this race had to be Verifying and Giant Mischief for the Brad Cox camp. Giant Mischief, as soon as he crossed the wire, Brad turned to the partners and said, doesn't want to go this far. And they agreed with him. And so maybe he'll be in the Pat Day Mile type of horse. Verifying did experience some trouble, and he ended up going off as the favorite. I'm curious and dubious to see, if he is, quite up to the upper echelon of these Derby contenders right now, or if we, even with that trouble that he experienced at the top of the stretch, if maybe he's just a cut below right now.
Well, here's what I learned over the weekend, that Brad Cox is actually mortal.
That's good. Yeah.
Now, one race earlier, hats off to him. Wet paint got the job done and qualified in the road to the Oaks by winning the Honeybee in impressive fashion. But Brad Cox, finishes 4th and 6th with Verifying and Giant Mischief. Yeah, KK, to answer your question, I lean towards, I think he might just be a cut below Verifying. But he's got that race. I don't know.
He's got the
he's going to need the right spot to qualify for the Derby, and I'm not convinced he's fast enough.
Yeah. you sort of take out what we saw in that allowance win 2 starts back now, and where does that put him in the realm of the top players? Now, moving on from the top players, D, we had some news and notes yesterday that there's several of the former Bob Baffert trainees that are being transferred to Tim Yakteen, and some other trainers. Brittany Russell got one. I saw Brendan Walsh got one. Steve Asmussen got one. The horse that I think everyone's keeping an eye on is Arabian Night. And you look on his work tab, and there's a big work that's missing out of Arabian Night's work tab. Now, Jonathan Chirwa of out in California did report that he's possible for either the Arkansas Derby or the Santa Anita Derby. But as a handicapper and as an analyst, you're looking at it and saying, well, where is he on the work tab?
Well, I wish I had some insight, and I don't. I could probably check before the next podcast, but recalling right after the big victory in the Southwest, there were comments made about Arabian Night. He's not a real heavy horse. And so to me, this is a horse, when he puts forth one of those big performances, he gets light on you immediately thereafter. And so you almost have to build him back up. And they talked about openly right after the race how they're probably going to give him a lot of time between races. So he has the time between races. Yeah. Would you like to see him stay in training with a recorded breeze? Sure.
And he did record one on February the 13th. He only went 3/8 that day, but the pattern wise, he's been 13 or 14 days now from a work, but that could be the case. Maybe he, didn't come back into weight.
I mean, to your point, as a handicapper, is it a caution flag? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this may be entirely by design and by plan.
It could be. So now you look ahead. So there's Arabian Night. Then Forte makes his big comeback on Saturday that we'll get to in our next podcast. And after Forte, it's really a grab bag of who is, the top contenders right now on this road to the Kentucky Derby.
I agree. I mean, we've talked about all along. To me, I think you have to be, as fast as Forte and Arabian Night. And we've seen 2 solid performances over the championship series races. Angel of Empire, proven over a routed ground. You probably want to see him continue to develop and get faster. You have a Confidence Game, who took advantage of the wet conditions and a quick pace and chased into it and ran a very good race on Saturday in the Risen Star. This weekend's going to tell us a lot, I think, this coming weekend on March the 4th. You've got the Gotham. We're going to have the San Felipe, and we're going to have the Fountain of Youth, along with the John Battaglia as a setup for the Jeff Ruby up at Turfway Park. The return of Forte is going to be outstanding. Faces Breeders' Cup Juvenile 4th, Blazing Sevens for Chad Brown in there. You also have an impressive maiden winner going 7 furlongs for Gustavo Delgado in Mage. Shug McGahee's going to give another shot over a distance of ground for the Swale winner, General Jim. Rocket Can, of course, won the Holy Bull. Shadow Dragon ran second. And this is that's going to be a fun race. Out west in the San Felipe, you have a bunch of Yakteens now.
Yeah.
Right? You have his natural horse in Practical Move, who returns for the first time since winning the Los Alamitos Futurity in fast fashion, going up against the very expensive yearling purchase, or 2-year-old in training purchase, Hijazi, who has been transferred to Tim Yakteen. And, you have Natural Treasure, Fort Bragg, a couple of and also Mr. Fisk. Those were all the former Bafferts, now in the Yakteen care, and 2 very promising horses out west that are in the hands of different trainers in Go Rocket Ride for Richard Mandela and John Sheriff's trained Skinner, who both just recently broke their maiden. They're going to test the waters. And oh, by the way, the El Camino Real Derby winner, Chase the Chaos, will test dirt for the first time in there. That's a fun race. Now, who do we get in the Gotham? The draw takes place on Wednesday. There were mentions of Carmel Road, who was runner-up to Practical Move in the Los Al Futurity, getting on a plane, going to New York. Again, the Gotham is a one-turn mile, so you're going to see a different type of horse. Slip Mahoney for Brad Cox is probable for going up there. Lugan Knight, who, of course, won the Jerome back in January for Michael McCarthy. He's been training over at Trackside. He's likely to go up there. You have the hometown horse, Arctic Arrogance, who finished second in the Withers last time for Linda Rice. This will be a fun little race, and we'll just have to see who ends up in the box come Wednesday.
I wish, D, that we were on video right now. Right behind your head was a mouse running right across the floor. And so I wish. Well,
it's a construction critter.
I wish our podcast was on video. I'm trying to pay attention to your problems, and all of a sudden I just see this little gray critter crawling across the floor.
With all the construction here at Churchill Downs, you chased out a bunch of, what do you have? The field mice.
They found a home here in the communications office with us.
Every once in a while on a ceiling, you can get a raccoon. You never know what might happen at the historic and the world's most legendary racetrack, Churchill Downs.
So I think the big thing now after this weekend, right? So
do we have a hunch play based off the mouse? That's what I want to know.
We need to find a mouse, hunch play after that.
Yep.
So, I think we're both under the belief that this year's Derby winner and we've seen in recent history, they're either based in California, Florida, and now the hotbed of fairgrounds in New Orleans has really flourished. I don't count, Confidence Game being based in Arkansas. He's down at Fairgrounds. Reincarnate is based in California. Red Route 1, you can, maybe base at Oaklawn. So after this weekend, we have one opportunity left down in Louisiana, one in Florida, one in California, and then one in Arkansas. And of course the Bluegrass here in Kentucky. So there's not a lot of time left to be impressing us. And if, someone like Forte doesn't show up down in Florida, it's the most wide open Derby picture I can, think of in recent history, because we don't have the horse that's been, running in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile that ran in January, ran in February. We have some question marks.
Well, and you also, throughout the trail over the years, you do get a bunch of hype horses. And I like to remind folks to temper your enthusiasm because, even though I'm very excited personally about Forte and Arabian Night as being the fastest. Well, what are they the fastest at? They're the fastest at what? A mile and a 16th, 8.5 furlongs. And what? Arabian Night was that going a mile and a 16th or a mile in the Southwest? I think
Southwest was the mile.
The mile race, right?
Yeah.
So, that extra furlong and a half, the difference of being dynamic and special going a mile and a 16th, which most of these races are right now. Most of the races are at that distance. The Fairgrounds has changed that up just a little bit with the increasing the distances. You just got to temper your enthusiasm a touch and remember that, some of these horses are that might not be as dynamic going a mile or a mile and a 16th, will improve dramatically going over a route of ground, whereas some may take a step back.
Right.
And that's this is not brain surgery handicapping, but every year it's always about the now horse who just won last week. And it's always about the flashy hype horses that have, maybe just done something anywhere from 7 to 8.5 furlongs. And, winning that Derby takes, you got to have that speed, the stamina, and then a little heart and a little luck.
Yeah, that's quite the mixture there. And by the way, I think we need like a Tony Reale from Around the Horn to be our corrections guy. Smarty Jones Stakes, which kicked off the Oaklawn Road to the Derby, is a mile. The Southwest, which
went to a mile and 16. Yeah.
Then a mile and an eighth in both the next two.
Well, thank you. So, but either way,
still, yeah,
it's
your
still
point's valid.
They're dynamic at a mile and a 16th.
Right, and they're dynamic of who is behind them too, and who is behind.
Yeah, but they were fast too. I mean, sometimes I'm with you. Like I'm a big class guy. I love the company lines, etc. But you still got to be fast, and so. Just because there weren't other fast horses on the playground and this one horse was really fast, doesn't not make him fast. But those two horses were very fast and very impressive.
Did you see anything else this weekend that impressed you that could maybe end up in one of the final preps on the Road to the Derby series?
Event Detail, by the way, didn't run a lick in the Rebel. Don't be surprised if he goes back to the Jeff Ruby and maybe gets another shot, maybe toss that race and throw it right out. No, I did not see anybody else that, over the weekend up in Saudi, of course, we had the Saudi Derby.
Yeah.
And Commissioner King beat Having a Meltdown by a head with the Japanese runner Derma Sotogake running third. I don't think this is going to have any implications on the Road to the Derby.
No, I don't think so. And speaking of Event Detail, the OXO Equine racing manager, former trainer Don Chatlow said, the weather had almost everything to do with that result. So wouldn't be surprised if he ends up trying either a fast track or going back to the Tapeta surface at the Jeff Ruby. They're going to run both Itzos and Bromley in the John Battaglia on Saturday. And
that ought to be a full field too. That draws Wednesday, right?
It draws Wednesday, full field, fantastic. Again, going to likely be the favorite for Wesley Ward. There's going to be at least 12 of them in that entry box. I'm quite confident. And so it'll be a fun race. And that's only 3 weeks out of the Jeff Ruby Stakes. And so, you might see horses that are going to run here in the Battaglia on Saturday. Maybe they'll skip the Jeff Ruby and point to a race on the dirt like the Bluegrass to see if they are an actual dirt horse, which will be on April the 8th. So,
and then after what do we have? Not even a trio. We've got the quartet of Derby preps on March the 4th. Standing alone on March the 11th will be the $400,000 Tampa Bay Derby. That'll be headlined by Tappet Triche for Todd Pletcher. That is one of those fast and dynamic horses that, was proven at a mile in a first level allowance at Gulfstream Park. Now gets a test around 2 turns, and that'll be a fun race too.
Absolutely. So that's what's coming up on the Road to the Derby. We'll be back in a couple of days to preview the quartet of action on the Road to the Derby, plus much more on Thursday's episode of Inside the Kentucky Derby. Of course, got to leave us a review. You got to, chip in.
Oh,
help
yeah.
us out,
Hold
right?
on. Yeah. Well, leave us a review. But first of all, while you, the listener, contemplates reviewing us as a 5-star 5 stars for a 4-star performance, might even been 2 stars. KK was down in Arkansas. We need tales from the road. What was the food highlight or any other side stories down there in Hot Springs, Arkansas?
The food in Hot Springs, hate to say it, is not as good down as it was in New Orleans. Just not quite the New Orleans type.
So when
you
say the word cuisine,
yeah,
you go from Bourbon Street, to Hot Springs,
right? And so there's some places in Hot Spring.
Did you get your dive? Did you stop off at your dive place?
So here I started my trip. I went the Western Kentucky Parkway, and that's the back way to go into down to Arkansas. You can either go I-65 south, hit Nashville, then you take I-40 through Memphis, and you can go that way. I decided to take the Western Kentucky Parkway and went through. I ended up going the whole way through Kentucky, hit Northwest Tennessee, Southeast Missouri, and then I'm in North Arkansas, and I'm going straight down to Oaklawn. So I had to pass John Asher Memorial Highway on the way in Litchfield, made a stop off there. Saw the first radio station that Johnny Boy was able to have his first job at, and it's everything that I think he told the stories of. It's an older house in Litchfield. It was really cool to see that. I actually made the wrong turn. I tried to go find the John, memorial sign, and I got off the wrong exit, and I ended up on the far, I guess would be the northern end of Litchfield, and here I am, steps outside the radio station. I don't know where the sign is. I just knew that he was at this radio station. And so here I am at the old radio station. I went through the whole town of Litchfield, saw the John Ash Memorial Highway, hit back on the Parkway. I get to northern Arkansas. I stopped at a place called Q49 Smokehouse. I originally was going to go to the old Gin, and the old Gin was shut down for renovations. So,
no.
So I went to the
how was the Q49?
It was some solid barbecue. Got some brisket, got some smoked wings with a cranberry habanero barbecue sauce on them. They were good. It was a solid stop off there, and it was probably about an hour-ish out of my way, the way that I ended up going. There was farm fields on the left and the right of me, a lot of cotton gins, and ended up making it to Oaklawn on Thursday night. And then you're in Hot Springs, and it was a decent day in Hot Springs. It was about, 65-ish by the time I got there. I grabbed a quick sandwich, and then 6:30 at night. What the heck am I supposed to do? The track doesn't open until 6:45 a.m. the next day. That's banker's hours for someone like me. Let's go over to the casino at Oaklawn, see who's there. Mm-hmm. Run into Don Chatlos, run into Randy Morris, run into Nick Zito. There's more trainers in the casino than I think.
Whoa. No Wayne Lucas?
Didn't see Wayne.
The coach?
No, but apparently he's, in the one room that I was in the casino. He's
got his own room.
Yeah, he's frequents that area, but no Wayne was there. And then on Friday I went to the track, and it was a rainy, muddy mess on Friday. Sort of took it easy on Friday, and then Saturday was Rebel Day, and it was about 40 degrees with rain. And Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports was there, and the amount of people that came out, I think, just to, see this guy was, more than I ever thought imaginable. And so there was, 25, 30,000 people there in this grandstand in the cold rain. And, they certainly come out and support their horse racing down there.
Love their racing. Saratoga, the South.
It was pretty amazing. I went to breakfast after, the 1 hour of training on Saturday morning that they had because of the weather conditions. And so I'm driving back up through the town. It's really just one street on Central Avenue in Arkansas. So it's really just this one street that has all the businesses and stuff. I'm staying at the north end of that street, and it's 10 o'clock. The first race is noon, and it's packed. The parking lot near Rocky's Pizza and Stubbs Barbecue, it's packed, and people are getting their pregame on to go to the races. And then I came back about an hour and a half later, and it was, even more of a sea of people. But it was fun to see a town like that. It's everywhere you go. It's a racetracker. Like, we know what racetrackers look like. They're wearing jeans, they're drinking, a beer, they're, low key. The whole town are racetrackers.
Past performances rolled up in your back pocket.
Yeah, it's everywhere you go, they're racetrackers. And so I thought it was cool. I was actually shopping in downtown Hot Springs, and I overheard a phone conversation in one of the stores, and the guy said, yeah, we're here. There's some big race for the Derby here this weekend, so we're checking out the track after we're done here. And so it was everyone of every sort of lifestyle converged on Oaklawn on Saturday. So that was cool, and then drove back on Sunday. Fun little trip to Hot Springs. It's a cool racing town if you ever get a chance to go experience it. I'd say the locals say probably come down in another month. The weather turns, and then you can do some things out on the lake. But apparently the late February, early March season down at Hot Springs, there's not a lot going on. Besides Oaklawn, of course.
That's all you need.
Yeah, that's certainly, I think the whole town showed up. So that was fun. I'll be at Turfway for Saturday night's Battaglia Memorial, Cincinnati Trophy Stakes. Come check out the new Turfway for listening. They redid the grandstand. It's a gorgeous new facility up at Turfway, and some great racing action that'll get kicked off on Saturday, 5:55 Eastern time, post time, so you can watch all of the action for down at the Fountain of Youth at Gulfstream and the Gotham, and then catch the later action from Santa Anita, and of course the live action at Turfway on Saturday night up there.
As someone who pays very close attention to the road to the Derby on an annual basis, I will say this: the quality of the 3-year-olds running in this coming Saturday's Battaglia and eventually the Jeff Ruby is significantly stronger than it has been in the last decade. Significantly stronger. Some fun horses. You're going to have full field on Saturday night. They've had full fields the whole meet. The betting public around the nation's been responding. It's really been a fun product, and I expect nothing different this Saturday.
Yeah, it should be fun, and we'll talk about all that and more on Thursday's show here on Inside the Kentucky Derby. Thanks for listening, and we'll chat in a couple of days.